Hello, this is Answers with Ashley. Hi, I'm Ashley Giovanucci, and together we're going to answer some of life's toughest questions. Today's topic is, why do bad things happen? Now, it's going to be difficult to answer that question, but we're going to turn to the Bible for some insights. Earlier this year, I got a phone call that no wife wants to get. My husband Joseph had been involved in a work accident, and assuming the best about everything, I immediately assumed that it wasn't that bad. Well, I was wrong. I thought maybe he tripped over something, maybe broken a bone, but that was it. I was sure. But I couldn't deny the reality for long. He had a job working in construction, and he's around power equipment, heavy tools. He's exposed to a number of dangers at all points of the day. But he had tripped and broken a bone. That was it. I was sure. Joseph's coworkers put me on the phone, and in the brief moments that I talked to him, I could hear the pain in his voice. He didn't tell me what had happened, but he said it was bad. I tried to pray for him. I tried to comfort him. The commotion on the other end of the line just turned my lofty words into mutterings. I honestly can't even remember what I prayed. It was something to the extent of, "Lord, be near in our moment of trouble." The ambulance was bringing him to the hospital downtown, and on my way there, I wondered, why were they bringing him to the downtown hospital when there were plenty of other options nearby? When I checked into the emergency room, I asked the receptionist that question, and she told me that the downtown hospital had a trauma unit, so if there were any signs of trauma, the ambulance would insist on bringing them there. Trauma? What had happened exactly? I was just thinking, don't panic, it's gonna be okay. Mom always said panic later. I started to panic. It wasn't long before I had found out that he'd fallen almost 30 feet. He was on a roof siding a house, and the jack holding the ladder gave way. The ladder started to slide, and he rolled sideways onto the roof, trying to hold on to anything. The scene that I'm describing flashed before my eyes as I heard the neurosurgeon tell me that all of his CAT scans had come back normal. There was no sign of internal injury. And just the fact that that could have been our reality shook me to the core. Falling 3 times your height is considered fatal, and he fell almost 30 feet and there was no internal bleeding, no brain damage. So what had happened exactly? The doctor said that he'd broken his femur. It was repairable, surgeons could fix it. With enough surgery and enough time, he would walk just like normal again. It was just a femur. I knew that I had so much to be grateful for, but I can't pretend I didn't pray prayers of struggle as well. You see, it isn't just a femur. I mean, couldn't God stop it? Couldn't He intervene? Just end all of the pain and suffering that we face. Yes, and in a way, He already has. God cares so much about our pain that He sacrificed Himself on the cross, took on all of our burdens, all of our sin, all of our shame, all of our pain upon Himself. He bore the sin of the world in that moment on Calvary so that we could have access to resurrection life. He satisfied His own wrath with His own sacrifice so we didn't have to suffer. And He uses whatever trials that we face to weave the fabric of our life stories. God knew that Joseph was going to fall. So could He have sent guardian angels to protect him? Of course. Perhaps He did. But is it God's purpose to keep our lives free of pain? Or to use the pain that we do face for His greater purposes? The book of John tells us that we will have many troubles in this world, but that He has overcome the world. God's plans are bigger than the things that happen on this earth. God's not afraid of the trips or the bruises or the broken bones, and we shouldn't be either. Life and death can all be used for the glory of God. Our lives are not just what happens to us. It wasn't just a broken femur. It's a messy, painful witness to God's glory. We experience death, destruction, and broken femurs because we live in a world that is destined for hell. Hebrews 2:8 tells us that now we don't see a world subjected to God. We look around and we see evil, we see fallenness, we see sin, we see pain, and we see suffering. This is not the world that God intended. This is not a world that recognizes His sovereignty. Death and suffering are a side effect of a fallen world. But thank God the story doesn't end here. Whether it was God's plan or we brought it upon ourselves, He can turn it around. Every single bit of trouble on this earth can be exploited for good. What we think is bad, God can ultimately use for good. When we pray, God, your will be done, we need to trust that He will do what's best, even if we can't see it in the present. Over the last few months, Joseph is healed. He's went to rehab. He's learned to walk again. And we may never have the answer to exactly why this one bad thing in our life happened. We cannot be afraid to ask God why this bad thing or that bad thing is happening. And He may just reveal the answer to us. But when we feel the temptation to explain away everything that happens in life and try to figure everything out, we need to remember that some things we just won't understand until we reach eternity. God's purposes don't always play out on this earth. However, in the end, they will always prevail. 1 Corinthians 3:12 says, "Now we only see a reflection in the mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully. As even now I am fully known."